So over the past few weeks, we've been getting more and more threats against us here in the United States. But now the threat is coming from the White House. The White House is threatening the American people, is threatening ICE agents, and is threatening Congress. How crazy is that? Now, I'm going to address what was just said, why this is actually going to turn a problem, a massive problem, into an even bigger crisis. But again, this is just the beginning. This is where many governors are saying this is just the start of an epic problem. So, I'm going to address that in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So over the past handful of months, we have seen President Biden come out and threaten the American people that if they did not get their representatives to go and pass a bill, and whatever bill it may be, then we were going to see more chaos. Well, guess what? That's exactly what the White House is saying today. The White House says ICE will reduce deportations and detention capacity if Republicans don't pass the border bill. Now, if you remember, I've talked about this U.S. border security bill for a handful of weeks now. Just the other day, or actually on Sunday, this bill was released. The text of the bill we could actually read. It was a 370-page bill, but many Republicans did not support this, even though initially many Republicans supported a bipartisan bill. Now, it seems like they're just waiting. They're trying to push this back until after November because the bill that they said was bipartisan they did not approve of what was actually in it. Now, I want to read you the statement from the White House though. Again, this is crazy because this is exactly what we were worried with is what would the White House do if we cannot pass a bill? Because some say President Biden needs some authority to go and close down the U.S. border. But many others say he's had the authority. He just doesn't want to use it. Just listen to this. So the White House press secretary said, because congressional Republicans are choosing partisan politics over our national security and refusing to pass the bipartisan national security agreement that includes significant border reforms and funding over the coming weeks, ICE will be forced to reduce operations because of budget shortfalls. She goes on to say, we have asked Congress for additional funding and resources, and every time Congress has provided less than we asked for, or most recently, completely ignored our supplemental request. Here's the problem that we're facing. The problem right now is that lawmakers in the past, about 6 months or so, they've agreed to reduce the amount of spending that the United States is going through. We cannot continue to spend money like we have been. We can't continue to add $1 trillion deficit to our national debt every single year. We just can't do it, right? At this point, it's just becoming too much. But when the White House comes out and says that the ICE agents are going to have to reduce deportations, guess what? It means more people are going to enter into the United States. If we are reducing the amount of ICE agents, that's all we can do. Okay? And so again, this is a problem. And this is what the White House is saying. That if Republicans don't pass a bill, well, ICE is going to reduce deportations, which means more people will enter into the United States. It's also going to reduce their detention capacity, which means they cannot detain and hold all these people. So the issue there is, do you send them back or do you let them enter into the country? Well, at this time, they are going to release them and let them enter into the United States. That's a problem. So Republicans are saying, let's secure the border, let's shut it down, let's make sure there's not anybody new coming into the U.S. And the White House and Democrats are saying, well, yeah, that's an option, or this is what we're going to do. Because you're not going to pass our bill, we're going to let more people into the United States. We're going to reduce the amount of ICE agents. Well, That's one way to do it. That's one way to push back against the Republican Party. But again, according to many, this bill wasn't a great bill to begin with. Just look at this. It says immigration hawks warn Congress that Senate deal will handcuff future administrations on securing border. I want to read you just a little statement from them. It says right here, the legislative text confirms our worst suspicions. If enacted, the bill would codify the border crisis and severely limit any future enforcement-minded administration from securing the border. This is part of the problem, is that by passing this bill, the concern from Republicans is that if former President Donald Trump wins, this is going to handcuff him. This is going to make it very hard for him to secure the border in the way that he wants it done. But again, it comes back to these political games that are being played. Because right now, every single person out there, every single lawmaker is playing these games. There are some good things in this bill. Don't get me wrong. There are some good things in this bill. This bill is a great start. Okay? Experts believe this bill is a great start to the negotiations. This should not be the final bill. But if you listen to people like Senator Joe Manchin, he says that you need to quit worrying about party politics and getting reelected. You need to pass a bill. Well, I want to read you the statement that he made first, then I'll explain why this is such a big deal, because this is exactly what we've been seeing. People are talking about this border security bill. They're negotiating, they're going through all the steps, but when it comes to actually passing the bill, they don't want to do it. And it has a lot to do with the upcoming election. And I've said this early on, I said this months ago, that be prepared for a lot of negotiations, for a lot of talks, but when it comes to actually seeing the legislation turn into a bill, right, and get passed, it's very unlikely during an election year. Listen to this. This is what Senator Joe Manchin had to say. He says, when you have a chance to change and everyone comes to an agreement, with President Biden and everyone else also agreeing that this bill will give us the tools to secure our border and politics raise its ugly head. Absolutely, it's from the bowels of wherever to say that. I'm sorry that not going to be good for my politics. Okay. Goes on to say, well, I'm sorry to all my friends and colleagues. This is for America. This is good for our country. Start putting your country before yourself. Quit worrying about being a Democrat or a Republican getting reelected. If you have to do this to get reelected, then you shouldn't want to serve. Well, that's exactly the case. And this is not just the only bill that he says this on. Many times lawmakers are only going to vote or make it look like they're planning on voting to show their constituents that, hey, I got your back. But in the end, they do not want to vote. Just look at why many lawmakers are pushing for different bills. And the House passed a bill, goes to the Senate, never gets a vote. Because they're playing these political games. They do not want to pass or put a bill on the floor that has a chance of passing if it's a Republican bill. The same goes for if a bill passes through the Senate, goes to the House, and the Speaker does not put that bill on the floor because they're concerned that what if it passes? It's a Democratic bill. They don't want to put that pressure on themselves. So they just never put the bill on the floor. Again, it's gone both ways, and this is nothing new. This is something that's been done under former administrations, under different speakers. It's happening every single year. Okay? But while all this is happening, while the White House is saying that if Republicans don't pass a bill, things are pretty much going to get worse. Well, look at the numbers coming out of the San Diego sector. It says Border Patrol in San Diego sector apprehends thousands of migrants from 73 countries in a 1-week span. Just to give you an idea, this is from January 31st through February 6th. Now, I want to just read you this, okay? Just kind of show you some of the numbers. It says, according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, San Diego border sector agents apprehended 8,659 illegal immigrants from 73 different countries over a 1-week span between January 31st and February 6th. That was just a couple days ago. Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group trying to come into the United States. A little bit of a problem, but here's the other issue. Just letting people into the country is one problem, but finding a spot to house them, feed them, and ensure that they're healthy, that's another issue. Just look at this. There's 800 migrant families being booted from Denver shelters as the city nears its breaking point. According to reports, the city is trying to remove so many families to ensure that they meet their budget. They cannot overspend because the city does not have the money. So because of that, they're looking at ways to reduce costs. One of the ways that they're looking at is to send families packing, get them out of the shelters so they do not need as many shelters. If they don't need as many shelters, they don't need to provide as much food. Again, a lot of problems here, but this is about what we're going to face in many cities all across the U.S. So, as soon as we get more information on what is going on here, how this is potentially going to impact you, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. All I ask is one thing. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video, and make sure you go and subscribe so you never miss an update, and I'll see you guys on the next one.